Hey everyone, welcome to Mike's Podcast, episode 6, and today is a very special day. The long-awaited teased guest is here, my good friend Anthony Iati. Anthony, how are you?
Doing great, buddy. Glad to be on.
Yeah, listen, thanks so much for joining me. And just to give the audience a brief bit of background, Anthony did broadcasting at BC for a couple years with WZBC, and I wanted to give you and WZBC a shout out. I thought you guys were awesome. And I hope for many more good years for WZBC. But today, so I brought Anthony here to really make this Thanksgiving break exciting. We have a bunch of topics we want to talk about. I have 3 off the top of my head. I'm sure Anthony has some others. So it's going to be a longer video. I'm going to break it down by timestamp in the comment sections below. So if you want to skip around and hit the Giants or the Yankees, whatever you want to do, listen to me fail at 3 more picks this week, you can do that. So let's get started here. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Yankees. And I know you have a lot of interesting ideas. I wanted to project the free agent market, but the first thing I wanted to talk about was just the current moves they've already made. So I wanted to talk Joe Girardi. So let me get your thoughts there. They're not bringing Joe back. What do you think about that move?
Yeah, I think something that we do as fans all the time is we tend to look at things as very very black and white, very wins and losses. That's what we see. That's really all we have to go off of. And I think if you go off that, clearly Girardi had a very successful run in New York. He had 10 years where he averaged, 90, 91 wins a season.
He was 91, yeah.
Yeah, we all know about the World Championship in '09, and we know the job he did with this team this year, taking them to within one game in the World Series. So I think the fallacy that's out there right now is that the letting go of Joe Girardi has anything to do with wins and losses. I really don't think that it does, and I think that ownership and the general manager have made it clear that that's not what this was about. This was about communication with the players, relationships with the players, and just the kind of leader that they want for such a young team going forward. Again, I really don't think this is a knock on the job he did specifically. They're not firing him because of the replay faux pas against Cleveland. even if they had lost the series because of that, I don't think that would be the main reason why he was let go. I really think it has a lot more to do with just the kind of vision they have for such a young team. They want someone more relaxed, and I think. Speaking for myself, I was generally pro Girardi. I was not, he was not infallible to me. He would certainly drive me crazy in game with a lot of the moves he made. I know you feel the same way. Yeah, I know you feel the same way. Some of the the lefty on lefty matchups, I just thought was so overblown. He could overmanage. But the one thing that I always said about Girardi, and the one thing I'll continue to say, is if you look back on his 10 years and you look at the talent on each roster that he had, not the payroll, because we all know they gave out some bad contracts in that time. But if you look at the talent and the health of those teams, you can't find me one year where they underachieved with Joe Girardi. You can't find me a year where you say, the whole team stayed healthy and with the talent they should have won 95 games, they only won 88. No, that just never happened. I think 2015 when they made it to the wild card game and lost to Houston, and then this year were the two biggest examples of them overachieving. And I think in most other years, Girardi got just as much out of them as he could.
No, I completely agree with that. I was just shocked by the move because, like you said, he's gotten the most out of his team and his players every year. And the Yankee brass has come out and said they want a guy who's very analytical driven with the sabermetrics and all that, and a guy who's going to lead these young players. And I thought Joe did a great job of that with this year. I didn't understand the move. Were you shocked at all that they made this move? Did you expect him to come back? Did you expect him to get a contract? Because I was shocked. I didn't want him to come back, and for reasons that I explained in my last Girardi video. But I would have bet money that he was going to come back. I was shocked by the move. What were your thoughts there?
I wouldn't say I was shocked. I'm not saying I saw it coming either, but I think if you really followed them closely in the playoffs and you watched some of Girardi's his press conferences after the game, I actually thought that maybe he didn't want to come back. It seemed like maybe he was getting kind of burned out, and I think the Cleveland series really took a lot out of him with obviously what happened in Game 2 and then getting booed at home in Game 3. It just seemed like he was drained, and I would not have been shocked if he had said, I kind of want to step away. I was a little surprised, but I wouldn't say shocked that the front office made this move. And in the past couple weeks, Hal Steinbrenner's come out and said, this wasn't just based off kind of new trends. This is based off things that I've heard about him and his relationship with the players for the last 3 or 4 years, which, I guess is something that we don't see a lot of. So maybe we didn't see this coming, but shocked? No, I wouldn't say shocked.
I just can't. So again, Hal Steinbrenner came out and said that they wanted a player, I guess, with stronger ties to these young players, and I was shocked by that because I always thought Joe had a good relationship with these young guys. I mean, I know Clint Frazier threw up a gram of really appreciating how much Girardi meant to him. And when I look back at his time with the Yankees, he definitely had some run-ins with some of these veterans. You look at how he handled the Posada situation in 2011. I thought he didn't do that well, but with his young core, I thought he did a great job with them. So I was shocked that they let him go. It's a question of now who are they going to bring in here, and there's a laundry list of names. And to me, I said this before, I can't really give you a name of a guy I want because I have no idea what kind of manager Raul Ibanez is going to be. I don't know what I know. Chris Woodward is a name they're throwing out there, the AAA manager. So I can't give you a name. I can just like the qualities. Are there any qualities you see in the next manager that you want them to have?
Well, and see, that's kind of the one thing that bothers me about this whole search or this whole process is that they're going through it and they don't seem to even have a specific idea of what they want. Like they didn't let him go without with someone in mind that they thought could replace him. There wasn't Buck Showalter, some other very well regarded manager out there that they wanted to bring in. So it kind of seems like they're walking around aimlessly. But I think the one thing that we have to remember is that, especially given the way he's turned this team around the past couple of years, I think Brian Cashman and the front office have earned our trust on this one. I think what you said about how you don't see anyone being like a slam dunk hire, I think that's true, and I also think it goes the other way. I don't think there's anyone they could hire that would run this team into the ground. I think the talent is there, and that's what's going to win or lose this team games and playoff series and potentially championships in the next few years. The manager will make a difference, obviously, but I don't think that whoever they hire is going to make a difference of 20 wins in a season or anything like that. So, yeah, like I said, I don't have a big name in mind either. I mean, if you run down the list of guys who have interviewed,
so many names, yeah.
Rob Thompson was the Yankee bench coach under Girardi. Now him, listen, all indications are that the players love him and that he has very strong ties there, and he's been in the organization for 27 years. He's a Yankee, and there's something to be said for that. Now, on the other hand, you can question whether he would be enough of a change from Girardi, seeing as he was on his staff. So, if I had to bet, I think Thompson might be the favorite right now. I think just because he is familiar with the players and has those relationships, but you got other names too. Hensley Mullins, the Giants bench coach, apparently did well in his interview. Again, we don't know a lot about him. I know he was a former Yankee prospect way back in the day, and you got Aaron Boone, who would be coming out of the broadcast booth.
Like Joe Girardi with the Yes Network.
Right, like Girardi did in 08. And Eric Wedge, he is the only one on this list who I kind of see as like would be like a retread hire, someone who's had two managerial jobs before, didn't exactly do a great job. And then there's Chris Woodward, who you mentioned, Dodger third base coach. We don't know a whole lot about him or what he would be as a manager. To me, that would be a kind of odd hire. He was never a Yankee in the regular season, so I don't know. I mean, we've heard some other names floated around too. You heard Jerry Hairston Jr. early on,
right?
Raul Ibanez, you mentioned.
Giambi, A-Rod.
Yeah,
I don't know how serious those were, but
I don't think very. Yeah. I think Giambi just had like another kid, so he wants to be home. And A-Rod is not a serious candidate, and I don't know why that's still being talked about, but even someone like David Cohn out of the booth, just because he's very analytically driven. I like Cohn as well, and you said this to me off the air. It would be a big loss for us as fans watching the games if we didn't have Cohn in the booth anymore.
Oh, if they take Cohn out of the booth and bring Joe Girardi back in the booth, it's gonna be a real hit for the Yes Network. But
Girardi's not going back to the Yes Network.
You never know. I heard he's interested in doing broadcasting.
It won't be with Yes.
But so I have two questions for you on this. So you mentioned Rob Thompson being the front runner, I guess. Do you see that as that big of a change? To me, if you hire Rob Thompson, you might as well just keep Joe Girardi, right? I mean, they probably come from the same school of thought. I think he's under Girardi, same relationship with the players, and I'm sure very analytical driven. I just don't understand how that's that big of a change to go from Girardi to Rob Thompson.
Yeah, I think it's certainly not the biggest change you can make, not even close. But I do think he has very different relationships with the players. I don't think that's the same. I think just because he was on Girardi's staff doesn't mean he relates to the players the same way Joe did. So I think that would be the biggest difference. And in terms of the analytics thing, I have a hard time putting my finger on it because we all thought that Girardi was very analytically driven. All the jokes about his binder and all that stuff. So we all thought that he was. Apparently, that's not what it means to be an analytically driven manager in today's game anymore. I'm not close enough to the game to really know then, I guess. If Girardi's not analytical, then I don't know who is. And Maybe they feel Thompson brings a different quality, and I do think he brings a different relationship with the players.
I just don't think it's that drastic of a change. If you're going to fire Girardi, who's been there for 10 years and been, you said 91, 92 average wins a season, I just don't think it's that big of a change.
Well, maybe you don't need a drastic change.
Yeah, maybe you don't. I mean, this team is close to winning. I mean, when you look at how they achieved this year, I just find the firing odd. Even though I did want him out, I just didn't think that they'd make the move. But so my next question to you with the manager, do you see? And we'll come to the Giants in a second. Do you see any parallels between the way the Yankees fired Girardi and Tom Coughlin leaving, bringing in Ben McAdoo? When the move was, is it going to be that big of a change? And obviously you see that Ben McAdoo like one good year, and then as you see what's going on this year, do you see any parallels there between the two decisions?
Not really. Not really, and I think it's just because the two franchises are in completely different places right now. I think when Coughlin left the Giants, first of all, that was more of a firing than this is. Maybe I think with him, he had 3 losing years in a row, and as much as I love Tom Coughlin, and anyone who knows me understands that, the time had probably come because that team was just not going in the right direction. And you can say whatever you want about whether they needed a new voice or not. It's hard for us to say, but this is about wins and losses. You are what your record says you are, and 7-9, 6-10, 6-10. Those were his last 3 years. And Girardi, on the other hand, this team is on the rise rather than seemingly on the decline. So, no, I don't really see the parallels there, but I guess I see where you're going in the sense that two very well-respected figures kind of being pushed out at a critical juncture. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're similar because I'm brought back to the statement you just said about how drastic of a change does bringing a new manager, and obviously they're two different sports. But when you look at Ben McAdoo, I mean, could you say, and we'll get to this in a sec, but can you say Ben McAdoo is the prime reason that this team is doing poorly? So does that mean that the next Yankee manager could come in here and make some moves that'll turn them in the wrong direction?
No, I think baseball, coaching in baseball, or managing in baseball, and coaching in football are extremely different. I think coaching matters a heck of a lot more in football than it does in baseball. I mean, you bring in a new head coach in football. First of all, he's bringing an entire new staff, which may or may not happen with the Yankee manager. But you're bringing in a system. You're bringing in a completely new culture, I think. I just think so much more changes there. Just the routine of how you go about your business each training camp, each game week, as opposed to baseball. It just seems like things kind of stay more of the same. I just don't feel like the routine or the system changes as much in baseball.
It's very fair. It's hard to compare the two sports. I was just brought to those two situations because we just saw Tom Coughlin leave and Joe Girardi's leaving, like you said, two respected figures. But anything else you wanted to add there with the manager in terms of just ideologies or any other big names?
No, manager-wise, I think we covered it. I think we'll have an answer as to who the new manager is probably in 2 or 3 weeks, maybe right before the winter meetings or something like that, which is usually early December. So I think this is going to come to a head pretty soon, and we'll know, and you can break it down on a different episode.
Mike and the Mad Pod episode, what will be like 15 by then, depending on the number of weeks. But yeah, so in terms of other moves, and we can kind of roll this right into the free agency talk. You mentioned winter meetings, but the last move I think is worth note is the Masahiro Tanaka's decision not to opt out. Now, I personally thought he pitched well enough in the second half to justify him opting out. Again, if you asked me in the first half in May and June, I said, he's crazy to opt out, pitching as poorly as he was. But in the second half and in the postseason, he didn't opt out. I loved the move. I don't know if I can name a Yankee fan who didn't love the move. I mean, what were your thoughts on that move? Him not opting out. Were you shocked that he didn't? I mean, were you happy he's back?
I'm very happy he's back. I think this is fantastic. This is a win for the Yankees. I think for him to opt in at 3 years and 66, 67 million, whatever it is, I think what you're getting is a pitcher who has been ace-like for 3.5 out of his 4 years here. And I think as horrendous as he was the first half of the season, and it was that bad. He was throwing batting practice a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
I think you can clearly point to a spot in the season in June or July where something clicked. He figured it out. I don't know if it was mechanical. I don't know if it was the pitching coach who figured it out for him, Larry Rothschild, but he turned it around, and he was just a stud down the stretch. If you look at not only the postseason, his last start of the regular season against Toronto, 7 innings, 3 hits, 15 strikeouts. Yeah. And then he rolled that right into the postseason. Game 3 against Cleveland, they're down 0-2 coming home. They're left for dead. We know what happened in the game before. Yeah. And Tanaka goes out and throws 6-7 shutout innings. And, he gets the robbed home run from Judge in that game, which obviously kept the scoreboard clean. But Tanaka was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. And then he he basically was just as good in the ALCS. He lost game 1 against Keuchel in Houston. But
Which is no easy task.
No, not at all. The Yankees never hit Keuchel, or at least that night they didn't. And then game 5, he goes back up against Keuchel and he beats him. Yeah. So I just don't think that there's much more you could ask for from Masahiro Tanaka. And I thought he's going to be a great kind of number 1 or number 2 anchor for this rotation going forward. I think he'll slot in right there as either 1 or 1A with Severino. And when he's on his game, he's an ace. Now, people have concerns about, how he's been kind of pitching with the partially torn UCL, and people are worried that he's 1 pitch away from Tommy John surgery. Listen, it's possible, okay? No one's going to say that he's extremely durable or that you're confident he's going to stay healthy, but what you do know is that he's been pitching on it for a while, and he's been pitching well on it, and for as long as he's out there, he's got good stuff, and to get him at 3 years, I think is just a tremendous tremendous move for the Yankees, because you don't now have to go out and give Jake Arrieta or Yu Darvish 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I mean, 3 years, even if he's an injury risk, 3 years is not a huge commitment.
Absolutely. And that's where I was going next. With the signing of Tanaka, I think that kind of justifies them not making any more drastic moves to the rotation. I think they have 4 of the 5 guys right now. The 5th guy they need to bring back, and this is, I guess, the next spot we're going to. CC Sabathia is not under contract right now. I think they have to re-sign him. Even if it's a 1 or 2 year deal, I'm not sure what CC's looking for. I don't think he's contemplating retirement. I know he thought about it in the year, but I think they have to re-sign him. I thought he was great this year. I don't know how much money you give him. It's tough contract-wise for make a determination. But if they can get him for 1 more year, I'd be happy. He probably wants 2 years for some security. I think they have to give it to them. Do you agree? Do you think they should bring him back?
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's no way. Not no way, but I don't think he's getting multiple years. I think he'll get 1 year.
You don't think 2 years? I don't think he will. 2 years. All right.
I don't think he will. I think he'll get 1 year, and I think it'll be probably in the range of 11 to 13 million. I don't see it going any higher than 13. He said he wants to stay in New York. I think he said he's basically pitching year to year at this point, just seeing how he feels at the end of each season with his knee history, his injury history. But no, I think it would absolutely be fantastic to get him back, and I think they will. There just seems to be a mutual understanding that this is where he wants to be, and the Yankees should want him back, and I think that they do. So I'd be looking at 1 year, 12 million.
Yeah, I would love to have him back. Really, then we have the rotation with those 5 guys. But as as any major league team knows, you can't really go into a season with 5 starting pitchers and think you're going to be okay. Someone's bound to get hurt, so they're going to have to. I don't know if it's bring someone else in or hope that one of these younger guys, Justice Sheffield, Chance Adams, makes the next step forward. I'm of the belief that because Tanaka decided not to opt out, that they should not go after an Arrieta or a Darvish. And I think I would. Would you agree with that?
I would. Yeah, I would completely agree.
They should not. They should not throw money at those pitchers right now. I think what they should do to shore up that 6th spot, because I think you got to have a plan of 6, is you really hope that Chance Adams or Justice Sheffield or even Dylan Tate, who I know is progressed through the minor league ranks here. I think you hope that one of them makes that much of an impression in spring training to be that guy. Now I know you told me off the air that Chad Green is entering camp, I guess, as which it's weird to say that already, that they're going to make him a starting pitcher, I guess. Is he? Didn't you see that he is coming to spring training as a pitcher?
Yeah, well, they told him to come prepared to be a starter, to be stretched out, and to compete for a spot in the rotation. And I think that's the right move because, first of all, I don't care how good he was in the bullpen. With the other arms that they have out there that are under contract, Betances, Canely, Robertson, Chapman, and even if they do trade Betances or one of them,
he's gonna go.
Even if they do that, as great as Green was in the bullpen, there's only so much value that you get from having a shutdown, 5th inning, 6th inning guy. You can get a lot of value if you can turn Chad Green into a good starting pitcher.
See, I like the versatility of Green in the pen. I actually disagree with you. I think they should keep him there because he's very versatile. You can bring him into a lot of different situations. He can be that 5th inning guy. He can come in a tough spot, get the out. You know what I mean? So I would rather they just try to develop one of these younger guys, give one of these guys a shot before they go to Chad Green. And if Chad Green needs to be a starter, then he'll be a starter. But I like him in the pen personally.
No, that's fair. He certainly was just excellent out there. I just think it's nice to have the luxury of the great bullpen that they have. But you don't need 6 set men. You just don't. If you can turn one of them into a quality starter, that to me is just so much more valuable. Someone who can give you 6-7 strong innings every 5 games. I just don't think you need a zillion setup men.
Which is why I don't think, and you mentioned this, I don't think Dellin Betances is coming back this year. I think they're going to trade him. I mean, if you look at the way they handled, the Yankee brass handled his arbitration case last year, there was a lot of bad blood there. I think he's approaching the point where he's no longer going to be controllable. Like, he's getting out of that rookie contract stage. He's going to be a free agent. I could see them dealing him because he's going to want big money. He's going to closer money. Even though he pitched poorly in the postseason, I still think he has the resume to warrant getting a lot of money. So I think they're going to trade him. I think Washington makes a lot of sense. Even, I mean, the Mets. I don't know. I don't know if the Mets are going after Dellin Betances, but I think a team like that could use a pitcher like Dellin Betances. So I would not be shocked, and the audience listening, don't be shocked if Betances is not a Yankee after like January. I could see him absolutely going. And you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think clearly Girardi had totally lost confidence in Betances. If you watch the playoffs, and we all did as fans.
Yeah.
The guy couldn't throw a strike, and it was clearly mental because he's a 4-time All-Star in 4 seasons. The guy has all the talent in the world. Something was not right mentally with him when he was on the mound, and thank goodness he's got an off-season to figure it out. Wherever he ends up, I hope that he's able to figure it out because he's too talented not to.
Yeah, you look at those. I mean, he throws a fastball 100 miles an hour. He's got a devastating curveball. He's up there at 6'8", probably coming in, looking like 110. So I hope he figures it out. Again, he's a great guy. He's been great for this organization the last couple of years. Was able to put up with Randy Levine in the front office, so he deserves a contract somewhere else. But in terms of other pitchers, I mean, is there a name out there that you like, a pitcher to bring in, a free agent, an arm? I don't have the list off the top of my head of who's out there. Any names that I know Miller's a free agent in 2019. We'll get into the 2019 class, but is there a name out there that you would want to bring in?
I think pitching wise, so like you said, if they bring back Sabathia, then here's what you have. You have Severino, Tanaka, Sonny Gray, Sabathia, Jordan Montgomery. Those are your 5.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you potentially have Chad Green, maybe. You have Chance Adams, you have Justice Sheffield, you have Domingo Acevedo as the young guys who are kind of the next wave. So you got them too. And then after that, I think maybe they add kind of a veteran arm on the cheap. I don't think you're going to see them in play for any of the big guns that you talked about. And as much as we don't like or didn't like Jaime Garcia at the end of the year, I think someone like him, I'm not saying it's going to be him, but I think I could see them bringing in someone like him, a veteran who eats innings. They're not great, but you can get them for 1 year. They're cheap. Just kind of like a stopgap, kind of an insurance policy. I think that's the kind of move you're going to see them make. And actually, there's the guy we haven't talked about yet, who I think is very possible going to be a Yankee, is Ohtani from Japan.
Yeah, Ohtani. This is the next topic I have.
Yeah, I didn't mean to
No, please. That's where we're going. I mean,
but I think if we're talking starting pitching, and you're talking about who their 5 are, who their 8 are, because like you said, you need more than 5 to get through a season. I think there's a pretty good chance Ohtani is in that group of 8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they definitely should throw money at Ohtani. I think they'd be crazy not to. It's not going to be that much money. It's like $3.5 million. That's how much they have in their international pool. And I don't know exactly how that works. I know they have a certain amount of money. They can sign people from Latin America, from Japan. The Yankees, I think, are the second highest compared to Texas, the Rangers. Although I don't know, did they surpass them because the Yankees made recently a couple trades to free up some money. Again, I have no idea how that works. But are they above the Rangers now?
I think they pulled into a tie for first. The trade they made over the weekend was with Miami. They traded, I think it was Garrett Cooper and Caleb Smith. If you're recognizing those names, you're a Yankee diehard.
You're a diehard.
And they got, what's interesting for me personally, so not only did they get the international spending pool money, they also traded for a former pitcher from BC who was there when I was there, who I actually got to broadcast some of his starts.
Oh, really? Is that right? That's pretty cool.
His name is Mike King. I saw the guy throw a complete game 1-hit shutout in a game that I was at. So from a personal standpoint, that's pretty cool. But no, the trade was really about getting the money to potentially sign someone like Ohtani.
All right, so if the Yankees and Rangers are tied right now, you have to think the Yankees are going to get him because I assume both of them are throwing all the money at Ohtani. Because I keep hearing that he's 23 years old, he can pitch, he can hit. I think a team would be crazy not to throw all their money at him, especially because it's so small. The problem I've been hearing, again, I really haven't been keeping up with this, is that the Major League Baseball Players Association doesn't want Ohtani to come in and undercut the market. Because if something about, I don't know if you know about this, I heard Francesa talking about this. If he's earning $3.5 million, that is well below the minimum for a free agent. Again, I'm not entirely sure what those are, but the Players Association is against him coming over here, so I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't come over.
Well, I think that was an issue until yesterday. I think they reached an agreement that he's going to be posted.
Okay.
So I think that'll happen next week. So I think the sweepstakes on him will start pretty soon. And I think you're right that every team should offer as much money as they can. I'm not sure it's going to come down to money, though. I think what it'll come down to is where Ohtani himself sees himself fitting in terms of he wants to pitch and hit or pitch and play the field. Listen, I don't know who's going to offer him that. I think a lot of teams might promise him that in a meeting. That doesn't mean they're going to deliver on it. So it's going to come down to who he and his agent trust and where they think he'll have the most playing time in conjunction with the money. I think it's going to be both things.
No, I completely agree. I think if that's what Ohtani wants, his best case scenario is to go to a team that's in the National League. I do not see any major league team, and even like high-end minor league teams, offering a player to play right field one game and then hit the other. Look at Madison Bumgarner, probably the best pitcher or best hitter, pitcher hitter is what I'm trying to say. He's DH'd, I think, a couple times, but he's never played the field. I don't think Ohtani's going to get that. I don't think any baseball team is going to promise a guy who's not faced major league pitching both spots. I don't think he's going to get that. So I think best case scenario for him, he goes to the National League and hits every day he pitches.
Maybe, but I think if he ends up in the American League, then you don't have to play the field. You can, on the days he's not pitching, he can DH.
But are you going to want your pitcher to DH on days he's not pitching?
No, I don't think teams want that. But I think he wants someone to tell him that. I think straight up, I think teams are going to lie in the meetings. No, I do.
Broken promises, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen, and it's about where he and his agent see a fit and where they see opportunity for playing time, and whether that's the National League where he can hit every 5 days, or if he can convince some American League team that, hey, I'll pitch, and then 2 of the days that I'm not pitching, I'll DH, and the other days I'll be off. I mean, maybe that can be worked out, especially if it's with a weaker team and a team that just needs kind of an attraction. Someone like the Yankees, I don't think would offer him that kind of deal. I don't think the Red Sox would. It's just too risky. It's too high profile. But I think if you looked at someone like, let's say the Angels, and that's just throwing out a name. If you looked at the Angels, listen, they need another star around Trout. They need to take some sort of chance because they're wasting his prime here. Maybe that's the chance they take, and they say, yeah, you're going to pitch and you're going to DH. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, listen, I mean, and I don't want to change subjects here, but we're talking about a big, bold move for a team like that, looking for a playmaker. You look at, and I know it's on the list here, Giancarlo Stanton. Do you want to move here? I don't know if
let's
so, again, the Marlins have talked about moving him, and if you look at that contract, that to me is one of the most ridiculous contracts I've ever seen in Major League Baseball. I don't have the exact what the numbers are in front of me. It's like 10 years, $32 million, and it's all back-ended, meaning as he gets older, he's going to make more money, which means a team like the Marlins, who was a small-cap team, are going to have to pay him $35 million when he's 35. So Jeter, again, firing Mr. Marlin and Jack McKeon, I mean, so that was one of his first 2 moves. I think his next move is going to be to move Giancarlo Stanton. Now, I'm going to jump in right away and say, all Yankee fans, your fantasy of having Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton can't happen. That would be a huge mistake. They just got out of the A-Rod situation. They do not need another guy like Stanton coming in here. The same player, too. I mean, Judge is doing it for 1/100th of the cost. And if you look at, I'm sorry for interrupting. If you look at Stanton's numbers, he had the big year this year, but every other year he has not played a full season. He's been hurt. He's never hit above 40 home runs, and his average is really low. I don't think a team like the Yankees should take a risk on that.
No, I totally agree. I want no part of him, and again, I know it's a fan. You said it, it's a fantasy. That's what it is. It's not happening. I don't think, and it shouldn't happen. There's no room for him. This team has too many outfielders.
Exactly.
This team has 6 outfielders. They're looking to get rid of guys. They're not looking to bring in someone, let alone someone who produces Judge-like numbers with, like you said, getting paid 100 times more and for 10 years. It's just foolish. It would be foolish. I think this front office that 10 years ago was giving out these bad contracts like candy, I think they've learned.
I agree, and they're talking about getting under that luxury tax. They're talking about really 192 million. Is that the number?
197.
197, whatever it is. So I don't think they're going to do that. And I was talking at Lafayette. I was talking to my good friend, Jack Tully. I have no idea if he's listening, but one of the moves that he mentioned that I thought was interesting. I'd love to get your thoughts, especially if some of the other WZBC guys are listening. How about Giancarlo Stanton as a Red Sox? Do you like that move? What do you think? They're a team that's trying to replace Big Papi, has not done a great. I mean, Mitch Merlin came in, and I guess he was admirable. I don't think he was great, but how about Giancarlo Stanton in right field there?
I think I think if they could get him at a reasonable price, they'd be very interested because it's no secret they want to add a power bat this offseason. And I think they're going to end up with either J.D. Martinez or Eric Hosmer. Martinez being more of the power bat, Hosmer's more of a contact hitter. They're going to end up with one of them or Stanton. I think, I was talking to one of my Red Sox fan friends up there about this, and he was saying, in order to get Stanton, I think we'd have to give up both Benintendi and Devers.
Right.
And to me, that would be just a foolish idea for Boston. And because already, as Yankee fans, we can sit here and we know Benintendi's already a Yankee killer. If you watch the games against the Yankees, how many home runs did he hit in Yankee Stadium?
How about Devers, too? Devers killed the one game with Chapman. Yeah.
I don't think they should do that. I don't think they should do that.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, what is Miami gonna give up to get rid of Stanton? Because they want to get rid of his contract. I think they might be close to giving it. I don't know if they're going to give him away, but I don't think they're going to want both those guys. Do you think they're going to want both those guys?
They're going to want both those guys. I don't know if Boston would agree with it. They're not going to give him away. They got the MVP. You don't give away. I don't care what he's making. You don't give away an MVP. True. But they might have to eat a little bit of money. That's the trade-off. No one wants to pay this guy $30 million a year for 10 years. It was a
stupid contract. I have no idea when you did that. But if you look at a team like the Marlins, who are kind of a sub-500 team, going forward, you can't sign anyone else because all your money is tied up in this one guy. That is not a good strategy. They're going to have to get rid of him. I mean, so the other thing, I think, again, he was saying, would you trade Mookie for? Would you get rid of Mookie for Stanton?
No, I don't see why you would. Because if you're Boston, first of all, and listen, I don't love Mookie Betts. I think he's a little bit overrated personally. But he is probably a top 10 all-around player in the American League, and you have him for a fraction of the cost that you have Stanton. And Betts is younger. Betts is more durable. Why the hell would you make that trade?
No, that's true. I mean, I just think it makes a lot of sense for the Sox to get him. J.D. Martinez too. That's a very interesting point. I think he would make a lot of sense.
To me, he makes more sense because it's just you don't have to give anything up. You have to give him probably 5 or 6 year contract for less money than Stanton gets. You don't have to give up Benintendi. You don't have to give up Devers. I think that's the fit.
Yeah, I think you're right. But just to focus in back onto the Yankees, or unless you wanted to add something else there. Going back to the Yankees. So we did the pitching. Now I want to go into like the position players and moves they have to make. And I think one of the moves, and again, this is going to be very wishful thinking. We're talking about getting rid of a lot of cash. I think they need to somehow, I don't know what they have to do, whose hand they have to shake. They need to get rid of Jacoby Ellsbury. I don't know how they're going to do it, and I don't even know if it's possible. I mean, they could pull a Red Sox and dump him like Sandoval, but they just, I mean, he hurts the team by being there because not only is he not that good, he's a pinch runner, honestly, to me, and he's clogging up a spot for one of these young guys that I want to see come up. I mean, you have the big names like Frazier, but you also have guys like, I went down to see... in Scranton, I saw a guy, Jake Cave, who I thought played pretty well. I wouldn't mind seeing him give a shot. Because to me, you have a guy, like a younger guy like a Jake Cave, a Clint Frazier, or Tyler Wade. I don't know if he's playing the outfield. But to me, give those guys a chance over a guy who's, 32, 33, and is not nearly 1/10 of the player you paid for.
I think that this, how many years has been, 4-year run of having Ellsbury and Gardner in the same outfield is over.
It really is.
Listen, I think
4 years, wow.
Their outfield now, if just on the current roster, you have Gardner, you have Ellsbury, you have Judge, you have Hicks, and you have Clint Frazier. So you got 5. You're not keeping 5 on the roster, and you know that Judge is a lock, you know Hicks is a lock, and you know that Clint Frazier has essentially graduated from AAA. He's figured it out. He's got to be up in the majors now. You're not sending that kid back to Scranton. He's done that. He's been seasoned. So to me, either Gardner or Ellsbury is not going to be on this team. And I know that everyone would prefer that Ellsbury be the one to go. I get that. I totally agree with that. But if you're going to dump Ellsbury, you're going to have to eat money. You got to expect to get nothing back of value, and you cannot expect to just spawn his contract off onto someone. No one's taking it. Yeah. You're going to have to eat money. If they're willing to eat half of his money, they can get rid of him. I don't know if they're willing to do it. So an alternative, and again, I understand that the Sam Capolongos of the world, this is anathema to them, what I'm about to say. But you could trade Brett Gardner, okay? You could then stick Clint Frazier in left field. We get that Gardner is a team leader and all of that and longest tenured Yankee, but he's probably not getting better. It's only 1 year of his contract, so someone is going to want him because it's a low commitment. And he's coming off a year where he hit a career high in home runs, and he still plays fantastic defense. He has value. He does. He has a lot more value than Ellsbury does. So maybe that's the move. But I don't think they're both going to be on this team next year.
I agree. And ultimately, I mean, I'm with you there. They're going to have to get rid of him, and that's coming from someone who I couldn't stand Brett Gardner. Again, he was when he first came up in 09, 10. He was more of like a punching Judy hitter. I thought a guy I didn't think that was that great. He really has taken the next step forward and he's become a clutch hitter, and he's gotten a lot of power. I mean, so is all of baseball, but he's really turned into a great power hitter. And I would just hate to see him go. I think he means a lot to this team. He's the longest tenured Yankee since 2008, which is just shocking to you when you think about that. So I'd hate to see him go, but they're going to have to get one of those two guys. I'm with you there. Let's talk other moves. Another guy that I love, who I could see the Yankees getting rid of, and I hate to say this, but with the rise of guys like Gleyber Torres and Miguel Andujar, is it Andujar or Andujar? I never know how to say it. But you have those guys rising. Starlin Castro could be a guy that's disposable. And I love Castro. They're not paying him a lot of money. I was so excited when they brought him in here. Just the question is, would you trade him? I mean, what are your thoughts there? Would you dump Starlin Castro this year?
I'd rather not. I think that there's other options that you can explore. I think a lot of this is going to hinge on what they decide Gleyber Torres' best position is. If it's third base, then I think that there's every reason to keep Starlin Castro. I think if you find out his best position is second base, then your options are either see if Castro moving to third makes sense, or you trade him. And he's another guy that, if you trade him, you're kind of selling high, because I know he's been a very good player his whole career, but he did hit over 300. He was just pretty good for the most part. He had some defensive struggles, but that's just his game. He swings a lot of bad pitches. But I think if they can get maybe a pitcher of value for him, it wouldn't break my heart, because one of these infielders is going to have to go at some point. And that's why, like the trade that they made over the summer where they gave up Mateo, and he was in the Sonny Gray trade, it really didn't bother me. Because you can't. I'm sorry. I know that everyone has this dream of an all homegrown team, 1996, whatever. Which, by the way, that team was not all homegrown either.
Yes.
You're not going to have a lineup of 9 24-year-old guys that are fresh up from Trenton or Scranton. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. You have this stacked farm system for a reason. They're assets. They're chips. That's what they are. And they cashed in to get Sonny Gray, and Gray didn't pitch quite as well as we wanted, but they got him for 2 more years. So I think it doesn't break my heart to see them take risks and trade infielders or trade young guys. I like Castro, but it wouldn't shock me and it wouldn't bother me.
Yeah. To me, I think that's a 2019 move. I think you have to see what Gleyber Torres has. I think it would, because now that I think about it, I think trading him this year doesn't make a lot of sense, especially, again, Gleyber Torres has not seen a major league pitch. He could be a bust for all we know. He could come up here and not handle the pressure. You don't know. So I don't think it's a wise decision to trade him yet. Again, it breaks my heart, and the Yankees are eyeing that 2019 season. I could see Starlin Castro being elsewhere. And it's unfortunate because I love the guy and they're not paying him anything, but that's why he has value. I can't see him coming back. Other parts. So you have guys. This to me is the last move, the last question mark for the Yanks. You have Todd Frazier as a free agent. I cannot see him coming back. I don't know your thoughts there.
No,
I think he's gone with the wind.
I don't see how you bring him back, not because they don't want him back, but because he can get a lot more money and a lot more playing time somewhere else. I mean, you're set at first base with Bird. You don't really have a spot for Chase Headley anymore because he's proven he can't throw from third base. He's not a great hitter, and he's really just keeping the seat warm, I think, for Torres. At least that's the hope. Torres or even Andujar if Andujar develops. But I don't see a spot for Todd Frazier.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately for Todd, again, he might go to the Mets. And the Mets is an interesting one. We got a buddy out there, Alex, if you're listening, who's a big Met fan, and we love to have you here and talk Met baseball. So I'll save it for that other day. Maybe that's over Christmas break. But I think there are a lot of interesting moves that the Mets could make, and I think Todd Frazier, does he make sense as a Met? I mean, he's a local guy, a guy I think that could fill a stadium. I know he's a classic guy who's got 220 and 30 home runs, and that's not the guy the Mets need. But they need. I mean, what is David Wright right now? I mean, is he? Do we know what David is? He alive? I mean, is he planning on playing this year? I don't know. And that's an awkward situation because he's obviously their Derek Jeter. But I mean, they're gonna need someone to play third base.
Yeah, they need a third baseman. There's no secret about that. And they also kind of need a second baseman. They need one or the other. And I think wherever they don't fill a hole is probably where Cabrera plays, Asdrubal Cabrera next year. But I could see Frazier fitting in there. I mean, clearly he loves this area of the country and he's familiar with it now. Yeah, I could see that working.
Yeah, and I think it would, and really they should do it. I wouldn't be shocked if I saw that. I'd love to dump Chase Headley at the trade deadline. I don't know if a team in contention needs a third baseman, because I am not a Chase Headley guy. I really don't see what he brings to the table besides being a nice guy. I mean, he's nice. Girardi loved him. He loved Head. Really gonna miss the nickname. I don't know about you. Really gonna miss the LZ, or it was L's. L's Guardy. Judgy, Sanchi. We're not gonna have that anymore, which is a big loss. But yeah, getting rid of Headley would be a nice change. Any other baseball thoughts? That was really everything in my Rolodex here. Anything else you wanted to hit on?
I just think you're going to see, from a Yankee perspective, a lot of, or not a lot, but you're going to see a couple very minor moves just to fill in some small holes. I think one thing this team needs that not a lot of people are talking about, I think they could use a lefty reliever.
I completely agree.
Obviously, Chapman's a lefty, but he's a closer, so I don't really count him. I think we're all a little bit, we're a little tired of the inconsistency of someone like Shreve. So I think you could, if they could go out and get either like a Tony Watson or a Mike Minor. Right. Those guys are both free agents right now.
I like Tony Watson a lot. The reliever for Pittsburgh, I thought he did a great job. I think he lost the closer job actually this year to I forget the guy's name. He was on my Felipe Rivera. He was on my fantasy team, and you saw my fantasy team this year. It wasn't that good, and I can blame Tony Watson for that, for my lack of saves.
Yeah, I think someone like that would fill a nice spot in the bullpen, and I think they could still use better production at DH. I don't think Matt Holliday is coming back.
I don't think it's clear. He's gone.
It's clear from the postseason that they were looking for every opportunity not to use him, so I don't think he comes back. And I think maybe someone you bring in instead, and maybe Yonder Alonso. He's on the free agent list because he's a guy who can play first base. He's Greg Bird insurance. If you're not going to have Frazier, he's Greg Bird insurance. He's a left-handed bat. He can DH. Yeah. I don't know how much money he's going to command, but I think if you can get him on the relatively cheap, maybe he's the guy.
See, I like the idea. I do agree personally. I think Yonder Alonso makes a lot of sense. And honestly, they almost got him this at the trade. Wasn't he one of the names they were throwing out there? Yonder Alonso, Eric Hosmer were some of the names they were throwing out there. But I have this fantasy of playing as many young guys as you can and really trying to develop that young talent. I think Miguel Andujar is a guy who, right now, he's got a Major League bat and a Double-A glove. That's what I hear. I hear he can hit Major League pitching. So maybe you make him the DH. Maybe you have him battle out or something. I would definitely want to see more of I want to see more of Torres, more of Andujar, and I really hope to see some of these young pitchers coming up. But yeah, that is all I have there. So now let's change sports here. We're going to move towards football, and the one thing that I want to talk to, I ranted about the Giants, and I probably didn't do a great job at it. Let's talk to an actual Giant fan. So Tony, 2-8. Again, they came off a big win against Kansas City last week, 9-12, or 12-9, I should say. But besides that, again, they were 1-8 before that. What can you attribute to this team that had so much expectation going into the year? Is there one area in particular you can point to as why this team is doing so poorly?
I think you would be underselling it to point to one area, so I'm going to give you 5.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the top 5 reasons that this team is 2-8, and I think I'm going to leave effort out of this because effort should be a given in this league where these guys are paid millions of dollars to play a game. Obviously, effort should be expected. And just because they rolled over in 2 of their games, in my opinion, I'm not going to count that. I think this team was headed downhill well before that. So the first reason to me, and this falls on the general manager, is just the failure year after year to address the offensive line and to address the linebacker position. And linebacker more so than O-line, because with the O-line, as poor as it is, they've actually recently tried to invest in it. They spent a first-round pick on Justin Pugh in 2013. They spent a first-round pick on Eric Flowers in 2015, even though it didn't work out very well. They spent a 2014 second-round pick on Weston Richburg. They spent 3 years on a contract for John Jerry. So they're trying to invest in the offensive line. They're not doing it well, but they're trying to. Linebacker, they just ignore the positional linebacker. This franchise hasn't drafted a linebacker in the first round since Carl Banks in 1984.
Is that right? Wow. There's a fact for you.
So I think that's the number one reason. These positions that they've just let decay, and it's barren. If you look at the linebackers they had out there on Sunday, granted a couple injuries to the starters in B.J. Goodson, and Jonathan Casillas has been banged up, and Keenan Robinson's out for the year, but they're playing no-name undrafted rookies off the street essentially at linebacker. And Devon Kennard is a nice player, but he's more of a pass rusher than a true linebacker. So to me, number one is failure to address those positions. Number 2 is just how predictable they have become on offense and the failure to establish the run. I mean, you had opposing teams earlier this season coming out and saying, when we play the Giants, we know what's coming. Like, we know what plays they're running. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, Ben McAdoo's on the sideline with his diner-sized menu of plays.
Slick back hair.
And he's dialing up the same 4 plays. Slant to Beckham, draw up the middle to Paul Perkins before he got hurt. I mean, just, they had gotten so stale, and thank goodness he finally gave up the play-calling duties. But to me, predictability on offense is reason number 2. Number 3 is one that I don't think has gotten enough buzz this year. This team doesn't get to the quarterback anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and I know what we know. Do we have to bring back the names here? We know the names. Olivier Vernon on a big contract. JPP they brought back on a big contract. They still have Snacks, who even though he's not really a pass rusher, he's a big enough body that you would think he would free up space for other guys. But this team does not get to the quarterback. I think they're last or near the bottom of the league in sacks, and to me, there's no excuse for that. JPP has gotten by for too long feasting on bad teams. Last year, his numbers were totally inflated because he had 5 sacks in games against Chicago and Cleveland. And this year, I think he's got like 4 sacks on the year, and 3 of them were against, I believe, Denver. 3 of them were in one game when he was going against a bad right tackle. So, to me, that's a big cause of this. They're not pressuring the quarterback, so they can't get off the field. Number 4, and now we get to the head coach. Yeah. I think that there's certainly been a discipline problem here, an inconsistency in how he disciplines. I think last year he seemed to be very player friendly, very hands off with that kind of stuff, and now this year all of a sudden he's, John Mara and the team gets embarrassed a little bit by Beckham's actions in the end zone in Philly. Right. And I think right after that there was a switch flipped in McAdoo, and he decided, now I got to get tough on these guys. Listen, I appreciate that he's trying to discipline guys like DRC and Janoris Jenkins for their actions, but I also get that the players, once you've let them have some rope and then you try to take it back, I just don't think that goes over well, especially with guys like them. These guys are young, they're very wealthy, they're not used to being told what to do. They're used to telling other people what to do, and I think unless you have a well-established kind of culture system like Coughlin did of discipline and you're going to toe this line, I think then they'll follow it. But if you go from not having that to trying to implement that in the middle of the season, it's not going to fly. And I think you've seen that. And I think that's why this team is sort of turned on the head coach. And number 5 is they were really healthy last year. I mean, they did not have a lot of injuries like they did the previous years. And that's just luck. I mean, a lot of that is just the way the ball bounces and the way certain tackles are made. And that luck is totally reversed this year. I mean, but Beckham's the obvious one, but you look at that game against the Chargers where they were 0-4 and they had a chance to get a win. And I'm not saying that would have brought them back into contention, but at least it saves your season before it totally goes off the rails a little bit. And they lost Beckham for the season in that game. They lost Brandon Marshall for the season in that game.
Big loss.
They lost Dwayne Harris for the season in that game, who's their punt return, kick return guy. And they lost Sterling Shepard for a couple weeks in that game. I mean, who is going to survive losing 4 receivers like that? Not to mention what they lost at linebacker, which I already sort of talked about, and now their best offensive lineman is on the shelf in Justin Pugh. So, yeah, again, I'm not making injuries as an excuse. That's why it's reason number 5 here. But to expect to maintain the same health that they had last year, that should not have been expected. And I think this team needed more depth.
No, I completely agree. I just think in that game they lost Beckham, Marshall. Again, Brandon Marshall was a nothing player for the Giants this year. I'm speaking very bitterly because I had him on all 3 of my fantasy teams. I thought Brandon Marshall was going to come in here and be a big target for Eli, kind of like how Plaxico was way back when. But to me, I think this all comes back to discipline. I just think even when you have a team that this team is too talented to be 2-8. I think even with the injuries, I think I can't remember if you mentioned the secondary there. Just the lowered expectation they've had of themselves this secondary. How Janoris Jenkins has taken plays off. How Eli Apple has not taken the next step forward. I thought he was terrible in the games that I've watched. Again, I haven't watched all the games, but a lot of that to me is just a mentality and a lack of discipline. And I can trace that back. And let me know if I'm wrong here. But does that come back to you at all of how Coughlin handled the whole Beckham situation? How you look at week 16? Was it week 16 against Carolina when him and Josh Norman went at it? When they failed to discipline Beckham, and I'm not sure if that was a decision by Coughlin or by John Mara if they didn't want him disciplined. But to me, that has gone on long enough, and when you allow someone with that much of a superstar personality to get away with that kind of stuff, it's a cancer. because then it spreads to other teammates. And obviously Beckham's hurt, but do you think that's at all? Do you see that coming here now?
No. This team is not 2-8 because Tom Coughlin
Right.
didn't pull Odell Beckham off the field 3 years ago in a game. Listen, I think if you gave truth serum to Tom Coughlin, I think he would probably admit now that not pulling Beckham off the field when he was headhunting with Josh Norman and just acting like a fool, just being complete embarrassment to the organization, I think he would tell you that he regrets not pulling Beckham off the field. And frankly, I think the officials all of that day should have been fined because they didn't pull Beckham or Norman off the field either.
Well, I think they weren't they disciplined? I thought the rest were that day.
Were they? I
think they were suspended or something with the way they and they allowed it to happen. That was terrible.
So, but I think, listen, was that kind of a minor problem? The Beckham discipline, yes, I think it still is, and they still haven't totally figured it out. But players win games, players lose games. This team is not 2-8 because of Tom Coughlin did or did not do more than 2 years ago or whatever it was. That's just not the case. This team has mailed in games this year that they shouldn't have mailed in because they're professional athletes. This team has not executed well in, as Ben McAdoo likes to say, all three phases.
Yeah.
We got to play complementary football. They haven't done that. That's the reason. I mean, if you want to say that the Beckham thing is a very small percentage of it, sure. But this team is better with him, and there's no question about it.
Well, absolutely. And I'm not saying just because of that one reason. I'm just saying because it seems like that's when this discipline issue started. And Ben McAdoo came as the offensive coordinator that year, and he appeased to I almost said Hitler, to appeased to OBJ there. When you look at his antics with the kicking net, when you look at the way, again, I can't blame McAdoo for this.
The kicking net thing, who cares?
Right. I'm just
Wasn't
putting
that
it
bad?
incidents, but you look at like stuff like the whole in the wild card game when they're on the boat taking pictures and you know what I mean.
Again,
like there's an attitude there, right? It is. I'm just saying, is that a thing that could lead to an attitude problem on this team currently?
It could, but I mean, come on, for that to be the reason this team is 2-8, I don't agree with that. Listen, Beckham is a buffoon. Okay, I get that. He's immature as all hell. He's got some growing up to do, and he's maybe not. He's not Larry Fitzgerald. He's not what you want in your star. I get that from a personality perspective. But listen, this guy's not a criminal.
Yes,
okay, he's not hurting anybody.
He's not Des Bryant.
Okay, so he does some weird play acting with a kicking net. Who cares? Yeah. So the end zone celebration in Philly was a little bit too far, and he got called right up to the owner's box about that one. So that was addressed. But even the boat thing, are you really hurting anyone? Listen, just don't put it on social media. You're not hurting anybody.
Well, exactly. I mean, and then there was the not showing up to OTAs this summer. Again,
but he doesn't have to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, but to me, if you're a leader, you show up to that practice. You have rookies there. You want to lead. That's why. I think
in a perfect world, yes,
he would have. Yes,
but he's not perfect.
Yes,
he's not. But I don't think he's hurting anybody.
Yeah, that's just the one thing. If I'm a doctor, I'm trying to diagnose the problems of the Giants. I'm going with a lack of discipline. And that comes from the head coach. And
listen, lack of discipline is a reason.
Yes.
But like I said, you heard my reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, it's talent is what wins and loses games. It's not necessarily discipline. And I think talent is the main reason this team got off to a bad start. And then, I talked about the predictability on offense. I think discipline is one of those things. I just don't think it's the main cause.
I just think with a team that was 10-6 last year and beat Dallas 11-5. I don't think you can say that not having talent on this team week one is the reason they lost. You look at that secondary. I mean, they had two All-Pros.
Did they lose to Dallas week one because they were undisciplined?
No. They didn't. But you said it was a lack of talent. Where I can't believe that this team is untalented with the players they have.
No, I'm not saying they're untalented. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that they failed to. They have clear weaknesses that they didn't address. Their big offseason move. Or two moves were Brandon Marshall and Evan Engram to help the passing game, which is fine. But as I said all offseason, as a lot of people said, if you don't have time to throw the ball, what does it matter? They didn't address those things. I'm not saying there's no talent on this team. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying this offense was poor last year. This offense didn't score 20 points for the last 7 weeks. And the moves they made to try to address it, I think were not the right moves.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the linemen, so they signed DJ Fluker, and then they got the tight end Rhett Ellison, who I guess was another buy to throw in there. But I mean, there were guys available. I mean, the guy was Andrew Whitworth. Yeah, he was a guy that they could have signed to bring. I just don't get why they didn't do that. And I think in the Jerry Reese press conference he gave a couple weeks ago, he defended that. He said that I'm sure you know the exact quote, but he defended his actions. He said, I guess, what was it like that Flowers isn't playing that bad or something? I don't know. I listened to the press conference. I didn't like what I heard if I was a Giant fan.
No, it was. I don't even want to. Yeah. Don't even send me on that route. That was a disgraceful press conference by the general manager.
So Jerry Reese, you say he's not coming back next year. Do you think he's out?
I think so. I think, but I don't think it's been determined yet. I think if this team goes on some kind of run, I think there's a case to be made that he should come back. I don't want him back. Yeah. I think it's him being fired is kind of long overdue. He's kind of been a cat with 9 lives. How he survived the Coughlin ouster, I don't really understand. I mean, if you look at Jerry Reese's record, his past 2 draft classes have actually been very good. If you just look at the names, I mean, this year, Ingram has been great.
Great.
Awesome. Dalvin Thompson has been great. Davis Webb, we don't know yet. Wayne Gallman has been, decent in a supporting role. And you're even starting to see some signs from Avery Moss, who was their 5th-round pick. And you look at the year before. Eli Apple, okay, up and down, I'll give you that. But Sterling Shepard, there's a starting receiver, very good player. Darian Thompson, starting free safety. B.J. Goodson, starting middle linebacker. Paul Perkins was good last year, bad this year. And Jarrell Adams, for a 6th-round pick, at least he can contribute a little bit as your 3rd tight end. So I look at those as 2 very good draft classes. But the problem is, you go back before that, and it is just an embarrassment. 2015, he spent a top 10 pick on Flowers, and we know all about him. Ooh. And then he smartly traded up for Landon Collins, and then after that, 4 busts, including Owa Odigizua in the 3rd round.
He's still there? Is Odigizua still
on
the team?
No, I don't think he's there anymore.
Then David Wilson, which was an unfortunate one a couple years back.
Yeah,
you can't predict the injury, but that's just an unfortunate thing.
2013, another example. Pugh and Hankins, the first 2 rounds, good picks. Reese has, with the exception of the Flowers pick, Reese has actually been very good in the 1st and 2nd round. But after that, he doesn't hit on anybody. Yeah. DeMontre Moore in the 3rd round. Ryan Nassib.
The ex-Cowboy, yeah.
Ryan Nassib in the 4th round. 2012. There's not one player from the 2012 draft that's still in the league. Yeah. David Wilson, we know, is an unfortunate injury. But after that, Ruben Randall, not a good ball player. J-Ron Hosley, same thing. Adrian Robinson, same thing. And then just 3 other guys that just never made it. Marcus Kuhn is in there. And he just never should have been on the Giants for as long as he was. Reese's drafts from like 2010 to 2015 have left this roster extremely top-heavy and very hollow underneath. There's not a lot of depth there. And you can't build a team solely in free agency. I think that's what he's tried to do, and that's one reason why I think he needs to go.
Yeah, to me, when you look at the mark of a good GM in football, with the draft, you're supposed to hit on your 1st-round pick. You build your team with the other pick. That's why trading picks is not ideal in the NFL. But you're supposed to hit on the 1st-round picks, and he has in recent years besides Flowers. But to me, you got to be able to build your team with those other picks. So other points of the Giants I wanted to ask. The Eli Manning situation. So this is something I gave you my thoughts again. I think, again, if McAdoo wants to save his job and Reese wants to save his job, they have to play Eli because Eli gives them the best chance to win. But you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have assuming someone goes on a run or someone loses out, you're going to be in a situation where you can draft a top 5 pick. And one of those players that you keep hearing about is the quarterback from USC, Sam Darnold. I think he makes a lot of sense for New York. But my thing is, if you drafted Davis Webb, I think you owe it to him and yourself, or you can take someone else. You got to see what he has in the tank. He has to play this year. I don't know if you agree with that. Again, because as a Giant fan, you want to win games. I mean, Giant fans should not be hoping to lose out. That's not right fandom. But I think they owe it to themselves to see what they have in Davis Webb. I mean, what do you think about that?
No, I don't agree. I think no matter what, whether they draft Sam Darnold, whether they draft Josh Rosen, the 2 quarterbacks, or whether they draft someone at a totally different position, Eli Manning's your starting quarterback week 1, 2018, right? Right or wrong?
That's true. You're right.
So if Eli Manning is your quarterback in 2018, I don't see the purpose of benching him now. I think it would be kind of a point of no return. And I think, and I've said this to you off the air, Davis Webb, the thing that people talked about and the reason people said he would be a good fit with the Giants is precisely because he wouldn't have to play in year 1. Yeah. Because he's coming from one of those air raid 5-wide, spread it out college systems, which is nothing like the pros, where they chuck the ball around all the time, and it's not a pro system. Everyone said coming out, this guy's got great talent, he's got a big arm, but he's going to need to learn how to play in a pro-style offense or a West Coast offense like the Giants have. He's not ready. He needs 2-3 years to develop. So, first of all, I think you'd be rushing him if you throw him in just from that standpoint. And on top of it, Eli Manning hasn't looked good behind this porous offensive line.
True.
They don't have much of a running game. I guess Darko has shown something, but they don't have a great running game. And now they don't have any wide receivers.
No one.
You throw Davis Webb out there where he's got no weapons except for Ingram, no offensive line, with a defense that keeps putting them in bad positions because they're quitting half the time, and you add on top of all of that the fact that he was never supposed to be ready this year anyway. You tell me, you think you're going to see something good from Davis Webb that convinces you not to draft Sam Darnold? No way.
Listen, yeah, you're absolutely right.
If you feel that Darnold is a franchise quarterback and you're in a position to take him, you take him. I don't care whether Davis Webb looked like Joe Montana in the 3 games he played at the end of the year. That's why he doesn't even need to play those games. If there's a franchise quarterback there, you take him and you deal with it later because you're not going to have Manning forever. And if Webb and Darnold are both great, then that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Then you trade one of them, you get an absolute haul for them. You do not make a decision to bypass one of these quarterbacks just because Davis Webb looked bad in a Week 16 game in Arizona behind Eric Flowers and the Turnstiles.
Yeah, and listen, I think that was very well said. I think more and more you're absolutely right. I think if you throw, especially with their schedule, I don't know the exact teams, but they play Dallas one more time. Who else they play at the AFC?
They play Oakland, they play Philly, they play Arizona, they play Washington twice, and they play. I might be missing one game there, but.
And they're in Oakland, right? I mean, that is not, even how bad Oakland's playing, that's no easy task. I think you're right. Yeah, more and more I think about this, that makes a lot of sense.
And I'm sorry.
No.
Here's the other thing. If you've watched this team this year, and there will be people who disagree with this, Eli Manning can still play. He can.
I agree.
I'm telling you, I watched this guy every snap for the last 13 years, including this year. The guy has not lost the zip on his fastball. The guy can make all the throws. Now, what I will say, he's not mobile. We know that. So you cannot have him behind an offensive line like Seattle has. Seattle can get away with it because Wilson can move and he makes plays. Same with Green Bay. Rodgers can move and makes plays. Manning's not going to do that. He's never done that. You can't expect to throw him out there with a poor running game and no offensive line and expect him to play like the top 5, top 10 quarterback he used to be. Of course he's not going to look like that now. But when you watch him and he has time and they establish the run and can establish play action and he's got weapons, he's still a good quarterback. I'm telling you that. I can think of people individually who are going to disagree with me. I don't care. Watch him.
No, I agree. And if you look at, teams that wanted to get, you look at Jacksonville. There were rumors. I don't know how true those rumors are. But Jacksonville were planning, again, to get him. I think he would be good on a team like Jacksonville.
It's not happening.
Yeah. Do you see the Giants trading Eli at all in the offseason in Jacksonville?
No, I think...
You think he has a career in New York?
Yes. I think what you have to understand about the Giants franchise and the way they're run is how steeped in tradition they are, how steeped in how family oriented they are, the Maras and the Tisches. And Wellington Mara, who was the former owner of the Giants before he passed in 2005, the two last big moves he made as an owner before he died and the ownership went to his son was he hired Tom Coughlin. Tom Coughlin was his pick. Ernie Corsi was the GM at the time, didn't want Tom, but Wellington Mara did, so that's who they hired. And drafting Eli Manning, or trading for Eli Manning, I should say. Those were his last 2 moves. And if you think that doesn't mean anything to John Mara loves Eli Manning like a son. From everything that I've heard through the organization, this is their guy. This guy won them 2 Super Bowls, and I understand he's not the player he once was in some people's opinion, but they're not just going to ship him off to Jacksonville. I really don't think that. And I don't think, especially if Eli didn't want to go. I believe he has a no trade clause, so I don't. If he didn't want to go, they have more respect for him than to send him there. He's here. He's a Giant. He's a New Yorker, and he's done everything right for this franchise. And I think that they're going to stand by him. I don't think he's getting traded.
That's interesting you say that about Wellington Mara, because I know, and you would know this more than I did, but I guess towards the end of Coughlin's reign with the Giants, didn't the Tisches want him fired, but Mara kept saying 1 more year, something along those lines?
That was a rumor. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I didn't realize that those are the last 2 moves of Wellington Mara's career. But, that is interesting, and I agree. I can't see Eli Manning playing for anyone else besides the Giants.
I think what you need to see the rest of the year from this team is besides Davis Webb, there's other young guys that I want to see get more playing time that maybe you haven't talked about as much. Avery Moss, who I mentioned a minute ago, a 5th-round pick, defensive end, he's actually looked okay. I don't think he's ever going to be a star, but he's shown some good flashes. I want to see him get on the field more. Wayne Gallman, same thing at running back at Clemson. And then Chad Wheeler, who made his debut at right tackle this past week, and he played pretty well against Justin Houston. Leave him in. You got nothing to lose at this point. Let's see what those guys have. So when Pugh comes back from injury, put Pugh back at guard and put John Jerry on the bench. That's no loss. You got to see what Wheeler has. We know what John Jerry is.
He's a bully from his days in in Miami.
Yeah, that too.
I didn't realize they were playing a rookie at right tackle last week.
And the fact that you didn't even realize it is
exactly.
a pretty good sign, right?
I was also watching the Miami game for fantasy reasons.
That's fine.
But yeah, those are all my questions with the Giants. Anything else you want to address before we go into our picks here?
Yeah, I think we should talk about the head coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think if you fire the GM, which I've advocated for, the coach has to go too.
I completely agree. The GM's got to come in there with a fresh start and be able to pick his guy. That's the problem you saw with the Jets with John Itzik.
Yes.
Because they had Rex Ryan come in there. That was a disaster. And I think Itzik went with Rex Ryan. I mean, so yeah. I think they got to fire the coach or they're firing the GM.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good comparison. And listen, McAdoo, for all the goodwill he built up last year, it's amazing how quickly he's lost it. I mean, he took a roster that we all thought had the potential to make the playoffs. I know I talked about the deficiencies on it, but this was a potentially playoff caliber roster, and he's run it into the ground at 2-8. Yeah. I mean,
it really has.
And the thing I point to most is the stubbornness to give up play calling. As a head coach, not everyone can continue to call plays. There's a lot going on. Clearly, he was not doing a good job calling plays for this offense because they weren't scoring any points, and he wouldn't give it up all of last year. He wouldn't give it up, and same thing this year, and it took like 5 weeks, and as soon as he gave it up, they won a game. They beat Denver. And this offense is never going to look spectacular the rest of the year because they don't have anybody out there. Yeah. But I think it was important that he finally gave up play calling, but he waited too long to do it. And now I think you're seeing some broken relationships with the players. I think anytime a team quits on a head coach, the head coach can't come back. I think that he's got to go, and then I think you start looking at who the new options could be. And I have some ideas. I think the two that intrigue me the most are Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator for New England, and Jim Schwartz, defensive coordinator in Philly. Now, both of those guys have been head coaches before, didn't really pan out, but I think Schwartz might be the answer. I think when he was in Detroit, I don't think they had a competent general manager. I'm not sure he was given a fair chance, and now in Philly, I mean, he's done a great job with that defense. I think everybody would agree. So those two names come to mind, and there's obviously others, but I think if they can hire someone like that, and then you bring back Justin Pugh, who's a free agent. I don't know if you bring back Weston Richburg. I think
interesting. You don't think so because he's their second best lineman, right?
I think Brett Jones has played a lot this year at center, and you haven't really seen a big drop off. I think if you have to pick between Richburg and Pugh, you pick Pugh every time because Pugh can play tackle or guard, and Brett Jones has been okay at center for Richburg. So I think you do that. I think if they can bring back DJ Fluker on another 1-year deal, you do that because as soon as he came into the lineup, the running game got better. And I know he's not a great player, but if he can help the running game, that's important. And then I would use that high draft pick on a quarterback if the right one comes out. And remember, both those guys can go back to school, Rosen and Darnold. But if the right one comes out, I think you take them. You take one of them. You add more depth on the O-line. You add two linebackers, two competent linebackers in free agency or the draft. And then you make some other supplementary moves. I think you bring back Darkwa. I think you cut Brandon Marshall.
Yeah,
I think you get rid of DRC. And if you do all that, I mean, this team could contend in 2018. It's early to say that, but they could. And that's another reason I don't think that you just throw Davis Webb to the Wolves right now. Because if this team is going to contend in 2018, it's going to be with Eli Manning, and he's got to stay the quarterback. So that's all my thoughts on the Giants.
Listen, very well said, and I want to go back to what you said about Darkwa. I was impressed with Darkwa. I'm trying to think of the game. Like a couple years back, I thought he was great. He kind of faded into darkness with the rise of Perkins when they took him last year. Perkins was a 5th-round pick, right? right before Jordan Howard. If my dad is listening, would like that one. But I like Darkwa. I think he runs hard. And if you look at the last couple games, he's done great. And I think if they want to have any success this year, and I keep saying this in my picks, I think if they want to have any success at all, feed Darkwa. And, I mean, I don't know if that shows you how well Dark was playing or how much better the offensive line is playing. But I think he's a hard runner. They shouldn't give up on him, and I think he should come back next year. I think he's the one guy. If there's one guy to bring back, it's going to be Darkwa. All right, so the last segment of the show, and if you've been with us this whole time, we really appreciate it. Again, obviously, there are going to be those links in the description below. But we're going to end with our Week 12 picks here, and hopefully Anthony has much better luck than I did last week. So, Anthony, let's cue that music and take it away.
Yeah, hoping to avoid 0-3 this week. But all right, first pick, I'm going with New Orleans, 2-point underdog in LA against the Rams. I just think there's a new look to this Saints team. They're not being carried by Drew Brees the way they have been for the past decade. I think with their ability to run the ball now, with Ingram and Kamara, I think it makes a big difference. And I'm not sure the Rams are ready for this kind of showdown. I mean, this is an 8-2 team coming in. They've won 8 in a row. They're probably the second hottest team in football right there with the Eagles, the Saints are. So I think they're going to come in here and and give the Rams all they can handle. So bottom line to me, you're getting points here with one of the hottest teams in football and a great quarterback. You take the points. So give me New Orleans +2 at the Rams. Game number 2, this is kind of maybe my riskiest or least popular pick. I like the Jets +4.5 at home hosting the Carolina Panthers. I just think that the Jets are going to play hard. I think they've looked solid. They've looked better than expected in most of their games this year, and they're coming off their bye. And before that, they had a real clunker against Tampa Bay where they blew an opportunity. They really did to get into the thick of the AFC playoff race, and they know they blew that opportunity. I don't think you'll see that again at home coming off their bye. While they were on the bye, I mean, they saw how mediocre this AFC playoff picture is. 8-8, 9-7 might get them in. So at 4-6, they're kind of still in this thing, and this game means everything to them. Meanwhile, the other side, you have Carolina, who they have matchups with New Orleans, who's 8-2, and Minnesota, who's 8-2. They got those coming up. So they could be looking ahead a little bit. They may, we've seen Carolina play very inconsistently at times the past couple of years. You don't know what you're going to get from Cam Newton. And Carolina's 9-13-1 against the spread in the Cam Newton era when they're a road favorite. And that's what they are here. The other side of the coin, under Todd Bowles, the Jets are 8-3 against the spread as home underdogs. So, and they're 5-0 this year in those games. So I think that matters. And I like the Jets to cover the number at MetLife. I don't know if they win outright, but I think if you're getting 4.5, I like that, and I'll take the Jets. Number 3, I wanted to come on and do something a little bit different. So I'm actually going to give a 2-team teaser as my third pick here. I don't know how familiar people are with that, but I'll briefly explain it. Basically, a 2-team teaser, a 6-point teaser specifically is what I'm doing. Basically, you get to move the spread or move the line 6 points in your favor on 2 games, but they both have to win. So what I'm doing here is a little Thanksgiving special. The Giants and the Cowboys, I'm teasing those 2 teams. So Dallas, I just saw the line move. Dallas is a 1-point underdog at home against the Chargers. And with the tease, that becomes Cowboys +7. You get the 6-point bump there. And the Giants, 7.5 points, 7.5-point underdog at Washington on Thanksgiving night. So the 6-point bump gets you to Giants +13.5. Again, both of those have to win for me to be right on this. But with Dallas, I just think given how many close games the Chargers have played, I was worried about this being a kind of a field goal game where Dallas could win but didn't cover or anything like that. And I think by giving the bump to 7 points, I think even if Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa give Dallas some trouble, if Tyron Smith can't play, I still think you can get Dallas to win a close game or at least lose by a field goal or so. So I think teasing it really gives me a nice buffer there. And I threw the Giants in because I don't necessarily think the Giants have turned a corner just because they beat Kansas City, but they did play more inspired football than they had the past couple weeks. And I just think 7.5 points is kind of high for a division game, especially when the team that's favored is 4-6, and they're coming off just a brutal loss. I mean, they blew a 15-point lead to New Orleans last week. So I think the only way the Giants don't cover 13.5 is if they don't show up. And I think that they're going to show up on national TV on Thanksgiving because they're coming off a win. So let's use the tease here. Let's make it 13.5, a number that they'll cover as long as they show up. So to recap, I like the Saints getting 2 against the Rams in LA. I like the Jets getting 4.5 at home against Carolina. And then a 2-team 6-point teaser of the Giants and Cowboys on Thanksgiving.
All right, Anthony, thank you so much for that. Love the 2-team teaser. I will definitely have to try that. Maybe that'll give me more luck. But the first pick I'm going to go with, I'm going to talk Thanksgiving too, and I'm going to pick the third team that was not mentioned. Let's go to Detroit, where the Vikings are 3-point favorites against Detroit. Now, in this game, again, looking at the Viking season in general right now, there was so much adversity to start the year. We weren't sure if Teddy Bridgewater was going to come back. Sam Bradford had a great week 1, but then he gets hurt. And then you were left with Case Keenum, and he has played so excellent. I mean, he's been fantastic as a third-string quarterback, because that's what he was. I guess, actually maybe a second-string, because you weren't sure of Bridgewater. But he's played so awesome, and then in the face of more adversity, you saw Dalvin Cook go down, and you saw Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon come up and play really well. And I think those guys are going to be the ignition in this one, the firepower to that offense. I think they're going to take down that Detroit team. The other part of this is going to be Stafford. Is Stafford going to be able to air it out the way he's known of doing? And Stafford with that big arm. Minnesota has that great secondary, Xavier Rhodes, Harrison Smith. I just don't think he's going to be able to air it out the way he normally does. I think Minnesota wins this one. I did not pick a score and did not come prepared. Whoops. So let's say Minnesota wins this one outright. I don't even think they're going to cover. They're going to win the game outright. Next pick I'm going to have San Francisco at home against Seattle. This is one of those more obscure picks. As of right now, the time of this video, Seattle are 6.5-point favorites. And I think, honestly, Seattle's a team in chaos right now. They don't have Richard Sherman. They don't have Cam Chancellor. Earl Thomas is out as well, and I think that team is going to struggle against San Francisco. I know that team at was it 1-9? They're 1-9 right now. Are they going to be able to score points? Again, who knows? I'm banking with them on this one. 6.5 points is a lot. I don't think they win outright. I think they cover. C.J. Beathard's played well against the Giants the last game he played, coming off the bye week. So we're not sure if he's going to be as lights out as he was in that Giant game. But I'm hoping for the best. I think he will. But one thing that San Francisco's going to have to watch out for is Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson can make plays. Again, he's not playing defense, but he can make plays offensively. He can move the ball. My problem is I can't really name anyone on the San Francisco defense. I know they cut Navarro Bowman. They have Eric Reed in the secondary. So I don't know if some of those no-name guys are going to be able to give some pressure to Russell Wilson. We'll see in that one. And my last one, I have to go back to the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm going to completely change my tune from last week. Again, 0-3. We had to make a change somehow, and I'm picking against Arizona. Jacksonville is 4.5-point favorites in that game. And I can't see Blaine Gabbert capturing lightning in a bottle twice. And he played well last week against Houston. But this is a great Jacksonville defense coming off red hot. I think 3 turnovers in the Cleveland game. I just can't see Blaine Gabbert, playing well twice in a row. I think he stinks. I think Jacksonville knows that because they've had him for his first 4 years. But that Jacksonville defense is great. I think they're going to give Blaine Gabbert hell. And Adrian Peterson, I'm not starting you anymore in fantasy, and I think you're going to struggle with this one as well. So let's take Jacksonville to win that one. I get 4.5 points, 4.5-point favorite. So I think they're going to win that one by more than 4. Again, I did not give a score because I was not paying attention. All right, guys, that is it for us today. I want to thank my guest so much, Anthony, for coming on and dealing with me in the podcast for over an hour. So, Anthony, thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me, man. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, listen, so hopefully we can get you back some other time. And, guys, stay tuned for the next episode. But once again, thanks so much for tuning in. Take care.